Hi there, team. I hope you guys are doing well. I am making this lecture as a way to go over briefly with you guys the changes that the College Board has made to the AP test due to quarantine and school closures and things like that because of coronavirus or COVID-19. So I've got everything for each of my AP classes in this one lecture, but I'm going to sort of create two different videos here for each of you. But I want to talk about the date changes, some of the changes to the format of the test, issues of test security, a couple tips about it being open note, open book, and a lot of the information I'm giving you is straight from the College Board website, like copy and pasted. And I'm just going to be reading it off and going over it with you a little bit throughout the lecture here. So first thing on here that you will see is that the test has been pushed back a couple weeks. So it will now be on a Thursday, May 21st at 11 a.m. All the tests are going to be taken online. So you'll need to have some kind of device, which I imagine you do, a phone, preferably though a laptop or desktop computer where typing will be hopefully easier or faster for you. You know, you can be a little bit more accurate and detailed on a keyboard than maybe trying to use your thumbs on your phone. But from what I've heard from the College Board, even a phone will be um, able to be used on the AP test. Our test will now be a modified DBQ, is the actual term they're using for it. They're calling it a modified DBQ. It will be one question. You will have 45 minutes to read the documents associated with this one DBQ question and respond. And then you'll be given an additional 5 minutes to upload your response and actually turn it in. All right. But 45 minutes to read all the documents, form your thesis, etc., and type up your response, and then 5 minutes to submit that. But I imagine the computer's gonna cut you off in some way as soon as that 45 minutes runs out. This one question, this modified DBQ, will be the whole test. 100% of the exam weight will come from that test. That's obviously a little bit concerning and scary, but it's also good because we practice DBQs a lot, and we hopefully have kind of built up the skills necessary to get a bare minimum of those points where we should be able to pass. And we'll be working on those skills a lot between now and May 21st. The language right from the College Board website reads like this as far as your test goes: that the modified document based question for 2020 will be derived from any of the units 1 through 6 that we've covered, and we're finishing up unit 6 right now, and will include 5 documents instead of the normal 7. The rubric will be lightly modified to match the reduced number of documents, awarding 1 point for using 2 documents and an additional point for using 4 documents. An additional point will be awarded for effectively incorporating a second piece of outside knowledge into the argument. Students can earn up to 2 points for sourcing, 1 point for each document. Or if you remember the HAP stuff we did, right? The historical context, the audience, the point of view, etc. All right. Um, Once again, only units 1 through 6 will be tested. Remember that we're finishing up Unit 6 right now on Google Classroom. The end of the course, Unit 7 through 9, the really, really sort of modern stuff, World War I and onwards, will not be covered, sadly. Although I will be trying to post a couple videos and things like that to help you round out the last part of that piece of your historical education for those of you, interested in learning a little bit about that, although they won't end up being graded assignments. There will be a makeup test day that will be June 5th at 9 a.m. I'm not sure any of you really fall into the boat where you need to do that, but if you do foresee some problem with you being able to take that test May 21st due to connectivity issues, lack of access to a computer, you're sick, whatever it is, let me know. and we'll get that set up. All right, so June 5th. The sooner the better, I think, though, while the content's fresh in your head. All right, now let's take a minute to go over the actual new rubric, try to point out a couple of the things that are different, and you'll see a lot of things are staying the same. We'll make ourselves real familiar with this, and as we practice some DBQs over the next 4 or 5 weeks and stuff leading up to our test, I guess, yeah, somewhere in between 4 or 5 weeks, we will be using this rubric, okay? Even though a lot of the DBQs we're going to have to practice, all of them, as a matter of fact, will have 7 documents and not 5. I'll be modifying them to help us get used to this format and try to grade ourselves based off of this and work towards earning, again, sort of like kind of a bare minimum of points here, all right? So we can see 1 point for a thesis or a claim, right? Nothing changes there. To earn this point, the thesis must make a claim or an argument that responds to the prompt rather than simply restating or rephrasing the prompt. The thesis must consist of one or more sentences located in one place, either the introduction or the conclusion, basically at the start of your essay or at the end of it, right? It can be in either or both of those places, but it's got to show up there. Anywhere else outside of the introduction or the conclusion, you will not get credit for that as your thesis, okay? Remember that. Contextualization stays the same. 1 point for contextualization. To earn that point, your response must relate the topic of the prompt to the broader historical events of the era, developments or processes that occurred before, during, or continued after the time frame of the question. This point is not awarded for merely a phrase or a reference. Remember that the examples we looked at, it should be close to almost a short paragraph you're providing of contextualization, something that really builds sort of the background of the era that you're examining. Okay, for evidence, this is where some of the big changes have come. You'll see you can now earn 5 points on the evidence section. This is where the majority of the points you're going to earn for the test are coming from, half of them, all right? To earn 1 point, the response must accurately describe, do not simply quote, the content from at least 2 of the documents, okay? So by describing the content of those documents, not even relating it to the argument of your essay, right? You can earn 1 point. To earn 2 points, the response must accurately describe, do not just simply quote the documents. In fact, try to avoid quoting them altogether, right? The response must accurately describe the content from at least 2 documents, right? So 2 points if you describe 2 documents. In addition, the response must use the content of the documents to support an argument in response to the prompt. To earn 3 points, the response must accurately describe, rather than simply quote, the content from at least 4 documents and use them to support an argument in response to the evidence. So 1 point if all you do is describe 2 of the documents. Okay, so describing 2 of the documents without necessarily even tying them into an argument, but just this is who wrote them, this is what's kind of in them, this is what they're talking about, right? That'll give you a point. If you use those 2 documents to support an argument, right, to support one of the points of your thesis. And remember how we were practicing bucketing and creating categories based on the documents. Should be real easy for us to argue with these documents. If you can argue with at least 2 of them to support your arguments, and support the claims in your thesis, that'll earn you 2 points. And then you can earn a 3rd point using those documents if you use at least 4 of the 5 documents that you'll be provided with to support an argument, right? Accurately describing the content of those documents, what's in them for 4 of them, and also relating all 4 of those or using them to support the arguments in your thesis. So that's 3 points total that you can get by using 4 documents, describing them, and supporting the arguments in your thesis with those 4 documents. All right. Obviously, I encourage you to use all 5 in your essay. And then you get up to 2 points instead of the normal 1 for bringing in evidence outside of the documents, right? Bringing in your own content knowledge that you've gained throughout the course, all right? To earn this point, the response must describe the evidence and must use more than a phrase or reference. You can't simply drop a guy's name or throw out a year or an event. You've got to sort of describe that individual or event or whatever, and relate it to your argument and topic overall, right? You can't just kind of throw out one little word or something like that and get credit for outside evidence, right? But if you can do that, if you can bring in something you didn't learn from the documents, but that you learned from our readings or from lectures and things like that in class, you can earn up to 2 additional points this way, okay? 1 for each additional piece of outside evidence, okay? Next year, it probably won't be like that. This is the only year they're doing it like that, okay? 2 points for evidence beyond the documents, 1 point for each piece of evidence you bring in outside of the documents. Can't be just a word or a phrase. You've got to sort of describe it and relate it to your argument and to your overall essay, all right? Okay, and then the last 3 points you'll be able to pick up through the analysis and reasoning section. This is where we have practiced the happing or sourcing of documents that way. All right, so to earn this point, the response must explain how or why, rather than simply identifying the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience is relevant to an argument. So for each of at least, well, we'll see 2 documents, you are analyzing its point of view, its purpose, its historical context or situation, or the audience it was intended for, and how that source information is relevant to an argument, right? Remember that we were looking at things like how the perspective of somebody saying something might influence how that information should be read, how their point of view is maybe making them biased in a certain situation. We'll be reviewing a lot of that stuff as we practice, DBQs between now and when you take the test. To go over that a little bit more, you can get 1 point for sourcing 1 document, 2 points for sourcing 2 documents. All right. And then the last point you get for the complexity point, which was one we've talked about a lot throughout the year as well. So 1 point if you demonstrate a complex understanding of the historical development that is the focus of the prompt, using evidence to corroborate or support, back up, qualify, or modify an argument that addresses the question. A response may demonstrate complex understanding in a variety of ways, such as explaining the nuance of an issue by analyzing multiple variables and explaining both similarity and difference, or explaining both continuity and change, or explaining multiple causes, or explaining both cause and effect, right? So by being very detailed and analytical, there's a point that just in writing a very detailed essay, you can earn the point. If the test asks you to talk, if your DBQ asks you to write on continuities between one period and another, as you attempt to earn this point, you can write about the changes as well, all right? And so on. By explaining relevant and insightful connections within and across periods, by confirming the validity of an argument by corroborating multiple perspectives across themes like environmental, political, social themes, things like that. Qualifying or modifying an argument by considering diverse or alternative views or evidence. This understanding must be part of the argument, not merely a phrase or a reference. So again, to earn that final point, it can't be just, something you throw in there, one sentence at the very end where you say, your whole essay is about continuities, and then you've got one sentence or line about changes. That won't quite cut it, right? You've got to kind of build a whole other argument around the changes part and really know what you're talking about to be able to have the time to get that last point. If you have the time, I encourage you to attempt every single point on the test, right? To write until your time runs out. I've attached the links to that information there below for the rubric you can actually see on the College Board website. Okay, so even though the DBQ is now going to be scored out of 10 points, you're still going to receive a score, like an AP score of 1 through 5 on the test, right? So that DBQ score, they will convert to a score of 1 through 5 to give you your score for the AP course overall, right? Most colleges want you to have a 3 or higher to get college credit for the class. The College Board says they don't expect major delays in this, and that the usual kind of early mid-July time frame is very likely when you'll get your released scores back, and that the kind of traditional network of college faculty, AP readers, which generally are AP high school teachers, all those people will still be reading and scoring and grading your DBQs. So no changes in sort of how they're scoring it, and they expect no changes in how long it takes them to get you that information back. They go on their website to say that by May 26th, they will send me copies of your responses, right? What you typed up. And we'll see if there's some way that I use those. I mean, we can talk about your answers. Maybe I can give you some kind of insight. I wouldn't maybe go so far as to tell you if I think what score I think you got, but we can talk how well you think you did maybe by May 26th. But that should be maybe even after we're done with school, I think. And then the last part of that part of the College Board website just goes on to sort of reassure students and teachers that they've spoken with lots of colleges and institutions across the country. They understand what's going on, and the College Board says they're confident that those colleges, educations of higher learning, will be awarding you credit for passing the test in the class. All right, so that you like the kids that have taken the classes before you will receive college credit for this modified exam if you pass, right? All right, and so to finish up, the last thing we'll talk about is that this is an open note, open book test. All right, and I don't want you guys to get the wrong impression about that. So the College Board has prepared a couple tips, pieces of advice to help you think about taking an open note and open book test and how that should influence your preparation. So I want to go over those with you and comment on a couple of these points they bring up. All right. First thing they say is that an open book, open note exams are not easy. Answering AP exam questions takes more than simply copying information from your notes. Finding facts, formulas, or other information in your notes is only one step to answering an exam question. You have to apply the information in order to complete the task. So if you think about the stuff or we are asked to do in a DBQ, some of it calls for strong content knowledge, and there is an opportunity to earn points for outside information that you could get through a quick Google search or by reviewing your notes. But a lot of what you're having to do is analysis, right? Sourcing a document. It's one thing to be able to look up the name or a couple notes of background about some Ottoman sultan or something you're reading about in one of these documents. It's another thing to be able to comment on how their role as a sultan or Muslim or Ottoman influences their point of view or the purpose they had in writing a certain document, right? Like those are kind of more skill based things that you're going to be having to look for. So these tests aren't easy. It's not just going to be asking you to recall simple facts, right? Keep that in mind. So having your book, your notes there might not be as helpful as you think, just based on the very nature of the questions and tests you're going to be doing. And so they go on to say you still need to prepare for the exam, right? You should prepare for an open book, open note exam just as you would a traditional AP exam. Having resources available may save you time in memorizing information. However, you still need to know how to apply the information efficiently and correctly. This takes preparation. So, again, between now and when we take our tests, we'll be practicing DBQs, FRQs, depending on the class you're in preparation for that, right? Getting the skills part of that down. And also trying to commit as much of that content knowledge to memory as we can, right? Having it in our brains for recall so we are not wasting time searching through books or notes or the internet for information. And that's actually the next point that they bring up, the College Board, and what I think is sort of the biggest, balancing act, or the part that really evens out, allowing you to use an open book or open notes on your test. That more materials aren't always better. You'll need to answer multiple questions on your AP exam. In this case, just the one, but it's complex, right? And you'll have limited time to do so. The more time you spend looking for information, the less time you'll have to use it in your answer. So, world history kids, you guys are writing one DBQ, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Human geography kids, you guys are writing two FRQs, a longer one and a shorter one. Um, but there's a bunch of parts that go into that, right? If you have to stop writing, or take time before you even start writing to open up a book or do a Google search or start looking through your notes to remind you of what you're looking for exactly, and refresh yourself on certain content, you're going to waste, I don't know how much time, right? 5, 10, 15 minutes reading content that we should already be pretty familiar with. That's not to say that it might not be helpful to, have certain sections of your book bookmarked, maybe to have your class notes maybe out before you, in sections or piles that you can use when you see the, topic for the DBQ and the time period it's in. You could quickly try and find that set of notes so you have it as a point of reference here or there. But the less you need to rely on those materials, the better, right? The more you go into that test expecting not to use any of them, I think the better off you'll be and the faster and smoother you'll be able to go. They go on to say you should not copy responses from notes or resources, that they have designed the AP exams knowing you have access to those notes and resources, and so the questions on those exams will ask you to apply concepts from your notes and resources in new and complex ways. Copying what you've done in the past won't produce a satisfactory answer. I think that's a pretty satisfactory explanation right there, right? I mean, you don't want to be just copying information out of your notes about a certain things. You want to be putting that into your own fresh words as it applies to each individual question you're responding to. They say your class notes are better than internet searches, that the internet can be an excellent source of data and facts, but it's also a source of misinformation, diverging opinions, and manipulated content. In the experience of our faculty, students taking open book or open note exams who try to find the answer on the internet often earn fewer points than students who earn their time to apply their own learning to develop a logical response. That makes sense for a number of ways. Again, if you're having to kind of Google and search for everything, your content knowledge isn't very good, right? So you're probably not going to score as well because you don't know as much as the person that can sit there and write it without Googling all that stuff, right? Um, when it comes down to it, a Googled response, using the internet can help you get that information a lot faster, but you've got to make sure that the website you're getting it from is reliable, right? That the information you have is the truth. Although, again, a lot of where you're going to earn the points on a DBQ for world history kids is going to come from certain skills that you're doing, right? Your ability to write a thesis, your ability to use documents as evidence. For my human geography kids, writing an FRQ, again, the expectation is you're going to be doing a little bit more analysis, kind of explaining connections between things, right? Interpreting maps and data to connect that to content and information from the course. So again, having a couple pages in your textbook bookmarked, some class notes, things like that ready and on hand will be helpful, but it's not going to be basic recall and stuff that you're asked to put onto those FRQs, as we've seen. All right. And the last part of what they've got on there is that collaborating with others is not considered acceptable open notes, all right? AP exams give you an opportunity to show your mastery of a subject, not someone else's. It is strictly forbidden to give or receive aid during the exam. Any students found using the work of others, exchanging or sharing information on exam topics, collaborating via online platform, or soliciting tips for problem-solving approaches will be investigated for violating exam security, right? They don't want you, all in a living room together taking the test, right? That will be considered cheating, sharing your answers with each other. And they'll be looking for that, right? If we have a bunch of kids that are all from our class, sharing the same class code or something, that have really, really similar responses on their DBQs, and are talking about the same ideas or the same information for context or things like that, they're going to be looking for stuff like that, is what they're saying. All right. And trying to have some repercussions for you. And so the very last thing I think I've got in here are some of the repercussions they posted to their website. So they say security is a big feature of what they're trying to do as a part of these online tests, that they've been designed specifically for at-home administration. Points will not be earned from content that can be found in textbooks or online, whatever that means. All right, I'm sure in some ways it will be. I don't know how you can bring in outside information on a DBQ, for example, that you couldn't find online, right? So some points will be awarded for things you can find online. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. Each subject's exam will be taken on the same day, at the same time, worldwide. And if you take one of the makeup exams, you will be taking a different test altogether than what your peers took. All right. On test day, students will be required to verify their identity and confirm the work they submitted is their own. I'll get you more information on how exactly you'll be verifying your identity as I read that right now. I'm not sure exactly how you'll do it. So I'll talk to the counselors and figure out what exactly you'll need to do. We'll use tools to detect plagiarism, so something like Turnitin.com or something, right? We're using a range of digital security tools and techniques, including plagiarism detection software and post-administration analytics. Like I said, kind of looking at a classroom's set of DBQs to see if you guys have similar responses and whatnot, to protect the integrity of the exams. In addition, each student's AP teacher will receive copies of the work the student submits to us, enabling teachers to spot inconsistencies with students' known work. And, as a man of honor, I'm going to have to snitch you out if I do see that there's some suspiciously similar responses, right? Suspiciously similar. I imagine all of yours will be a little similar in that, you all took the course with me and covered similar amounts of information, right? Students who violate exam security will receive consequences. And these can be a big deal as you guys are freshmen and sophomores, and this might not be your last AP class or last College Board test. And so the repercussions for cheating can be real severe here, some of the things they bring up. So they say that students whose responses mirror online content or other student submissions will have their scores canceled. Students sharing or receiving exam content or exam responses or engaging in any plans or efforts to provide or gain an unfair advantage will be blocked from testing, or their AP scores will be canceled. This includes communications or assistance in person, like I said, a bunch of you in a living room or something, via the internet, social media, FaceTime, whatever it is, right? Social media would probably be the stupid of those, stupidest of those to attempt, right? As it's very public, but your honor, your family's honor, and all that is at stake here. You wouldn't roll the dice on this anyway. If we determine that a student gained or provided an unfair advantage on an AP exam, we'll notify their high school so the school can choose to take necessary disciplinary action as appropriate. We'll also provide information about the incident to colleges and other organizations to which the student has already sent any College Board scores, including SAT scores, or to which the student would send scores in the future. That's pretty hardcore. So they will tell the colleges you want to apply to that you're a cheater. All right. They will tell the school that you're a cheater. And one or both of those institutions will take additional action, maybe, against you for cheating. Students who attempt to gain an unfair advantage also may be prohibited from taking a future AP exam, as well as the SAT subject test, or CLEP assessments. A CLEP assessment is, it's a lot like an AP test, basically. It's a way to sort of take a test to get college credit. Under certain circumstances, College Board may inform law enforcement of any incident to determine if prosecution of the test taker or anyone assisting in the test taker in misconduct is warranted. You can kind of think about those parents that got in trouble for helping their kids cheat on an SAT, right? Doing something at that level where you're calling into question the money spent by hundreds or of kids or something might require legal prosecution. Now, I just want to read all that off to you. I don't expect any of you to have any desire or attempt to plagiarize or cheat or anything, but I just want to point out that there are consequences. They do seem severe, and people get caught all the time. Don't be stupid in this test. I think it will be easy if you spend time between now and May 21st or May 12th, depending, preparing. Feel free to email me and let me know any questions you guys got. All right. I believe in you, and we're going to keep preparing for this together. So I'm here for you.